Heat and dirt are two things you do not want going through your intake, and if you're working your Gladiator hard, then this intake from Corsa Performance will be just right for you. Featuring one of the most efficient, maintenance-free dry air filters and a closed box design, this is a great way to improve your Gladiator's performance and drivability, and you don't even have to tune it. Quick note on fitment here, this is designed to fit 2020 and newer JT Gladiators equipped with the 3.6-liter Pentastar V6 engine. Corsa is known for high-quality aftermarket parts, and with good reason. Their exhausts have long been a standard of the industry, and you can bet that the same manufacturing and engineering philosophy transfers over to the intakes as well. Now, there are a few standout features here, but let's start with what is perhaps the most obvious, and that is the closed air box. Similar in concept to your stock setup, having the closed air box like this helps keep the intake from pulling in hot air from around the engine bay, and it instead is going to pull cooler air in from outside of the vehicle. Cooler air is more dense, and more air density means better combustion, which means more power for you. You're also getting a larger volume of air coming in versus your stock airbox because this is bigger. And you might have already noticed it, but there's another cool feature about this airbox, and that is the clear plexiglass window at the top. Not only does it look neat, but it also allows you to check on the health and cleanliness of your filter without having to disassemble anything. But this still keeps things sealed off to prevent heat soak and help keep those intake temperatures low. Now, all that said, airflow is only as good as the filter attached to it, and this setup features the Donaldson PowerCore Dry Filter. Donaldson is a company that focuses solely on filters and filtration technology, so you can bet that the PowerCore filter in this kit is designed to flow much better than anything your Jeep would have come with from the factory. And that is thanks to the patented Ultra Nano Web media that is designed to filter out up to 99.99% of dirt and particulates with more than 25% less restriction than other filters. Pretty impressive stuff. Now, they say that you can go up to 4 years or 150,000 miles without having to replace this filter, though that will of course depend on your usage and the conditions you encounter. Then we have the intake tube itself, which is this big ABS plastic tube. Now, unlike most stock intakes, this is totally smooth, so this is going to flow really well, and it's going to give you some added sound when you put the pedal down. So between that and the resonance of the airbox itself, you'll get a nice growl when you open up the throttle. And the nice part about intakes is that the sound isn't obtrusive at all when you're just cruising around under part throttle. And since this is a no tune required intake, you can just bolt this sucker on. And since this is a no tune required intake, you can just bolt this on and get back on the road or the trail. Now, I always throw in the caveat that you should not expect huge horsepower gains just by bolting on an intake. It's not the overall goal here, but you will notice a difference in response and the drivability of your truck. And of course, if you want to take full advantage of an improved intake setup, going with a custom tune is certainly something you can do. The box and the intake tube are both constructed from roto-molded ABS plastic. So this is strong, it's lightweight, and it's heat resistant. And since it's roto-molded, that means that the box and the tube are each one piece. So there's no real weak points, and it lends itself to a nice quality look and feel. That filter is again going to be a huge improvement over the factory unit as well. That Ultra Nano Web media and the dry design means that you don't need to worry about oiling or maintenance. So this is pretty much a set it and forget it sort of deal. Plus the kit comes with everything you need to get it installed. Pricing will come in at about $475, and that is pretty closely aligned with other closed box air intakes on the market. It's going to give you a different driving experience as well with that additional sound and airflow, and like we discussed, a tune is not required. The big deal here is that air filter. You're paying a little bit extra for that, but again, it is sort of a set it and forget it kind of setup. You don't have to maintain this, you don't have to oil it, you don't have to clean it or anything. You can just bolt this onto your Gladiator and go hit whatever trail you want. Installation will get a 1 out of 3 on our difficulty meter, and it's a simple job that should take you about an hour to complete. Definitely something you can accomplish at home with hand tools, and we're going to show you how to get this whole thing done right now, so for that, let's head on out to the shop.
For this install, you will need an impact or a ratchet, 8 and 10 millimeter sockets, a Phillips head screwdriver, and a clip removal tool. What's up folks, today we're going to be doing an intake on our Gladiator, but before we get started, we're going to send you to watch a quick video on how to remove your factory intake, and we'll see you when you get back.
So first we're going to remove our air temperature sensor, which you're going to press down on this black tab and pull out. Then we can take our clip removal tool and pry up on these clips. Then we can remove our PCV tube by pressing in on this gray tab and pulling out. Now we can remove these two bolts using our 10 millimeter socket. Now we can loosen up these two hose clamps with our 8mm socket. Now we can remove our intake tube. So now we can remove this 10mm bolt with our 10mm socket. Now we can give a tug on our air box. Remove.
Alrighty folks, welcome back. Now that we have our factory intake off, we can begin installing our new setup. So the first thing we're going to do is install our air box, and you want your intake tube outlet to be going obviously towards the throttle body. We're going to grab our support bracket that's going to go under this mounting tab and sit flush like so. Then we're going to line our two studs up with our factory grommets. Pop that into place. Once we get that on, we're going to grab our factory 10mm bolt and get that back into place here. And we're going to tighten that down with our 10mm socket. Make sure your grommets are nice and secure. So now that we have our new airbox in, we're going to remove the top cover, and we're going to do that with a Phillips head screwdriver. It's much easier to do this once it's mounted because it's facing straight up and supported by the brackets. Once you have all your screws off, you can carefully lift this up out of the way. Set your screws somewhere safe for the time being. Now we can install our filter onto our adapter inside of our box. So we're going to carefully get this in. Make sure your clamp is already on your filter. Slide that in on there nice and secure. We get our clamp in position. Now this is a bit of a tight squeeze, so you definitely want to use a screwdriver for this one. We'll tighten down that clamp. Once you have that tight, we can reinstall our cover. Then we'll get our screws back in place. I like to start all of these by hand. You definitely want to be very careful not to over tighten these because this plexiglass will crack. That's not what we want. Now these screws do have rubber washers underneath them to kind of mitigate that, but still, you only need to be snug. You don't need to over tighten these. All right, so we've got them all started. We'll grab our Phillips, tighten these down. I like to go kind of in a crisscross pattern so this sits nice and evenly. Now we can begin getting our intake tube on. So we've got our bellowed clamp, that's going to be the one for our airbox, our bellowed coupler rather, and we've got our two clamps on it. I'm just going to slide that onto our intake tube. You want it to sit about halfway in, and we can get that in place. We're going to leave that loose until we get our other coupler on. Now we'll get our coupler onto our throttle body side. That's going to be your straight coupler. Put that onto the intake tube and onto your throttle body, just like so. Now we can come back and tighten down our clamps. Now we're going to work our way from our throttle body to our air box. So we'll get our clamps. You want these always in a serviceable position. Makes things much easier. Just want to hold that in place. You can use an 8mm socket for these, and we'll tighten these down. And it's always nice to have them lined up in the same orientation. So now we'll tighten our intake tube clamp down. Then we'll move on to our airbox side. And make sure your coupler is fully seated onto the airbox filter adapter. We'll do the same thing over here. Once we have that on, we can plug our PCV back in. That should just click right into place like factory. So the last thing we need to do is grab our factory intake tube and remove the intake air temp sensor. It's best to do this last because it stays in the factory tube and you won't lose track of it or it rolls somewhere and gets damaged. So we'll just give that a turn, pop that right out. So now we'll get our temp sensor into our new intake tube. Now this is simply a grommet holding it in place. So once you get it into about where your O-ring is, you just want to work it in nice and gently. Make sure you don't push that grommet through. We'll come back and plug this in. Alrighty folks, that about wraps up our review and install of our Corsa Performance closed box cold air intake with Donaldson PowerCore dry filter for your 20 to current 3.6 liter Jeep Gladiator JT. Thanks for watching, and as always, for everything Gladiator, keep it right here at ExtremeTerrain.com.